Roadshow News Recap starts right now. Our headline story is sure to get the Honda fanboys and fangirls all excited. The reborn Acura Integra was just revealed, and we have complete details about this legendary nameplate. Subaru Solterra all-electric crossover was unveiled in Japan, and we don't know too much about this EV, but we've got lots to say about the styling. Kia also teased its upcoming EV9 all-electric crossover, which is set to debut at the LA Auto Show next week. It's a very promising vehicle based on what we've seen, but it could also have one super annoying feature. Now, if you're thinking about buying an EV, you may want to wait just a little bit longer. If some proposed legislation gets passed, you might get a huge discount, so don't jump the gun just yet. But happy Friday, everyone. And as always, Sean, it is great to see your smiling face or your indifferent face, however you're feeling today. I'm not sure, but great to be back on another show with you.
All smiles. Always all smiles when I see you, Craig. It's good to see you. Glad to be here as always. Happy Friday and happy weekend if you're watching us over the weekend, or happy next week if you're watching us next week or whatever. Hello.
Hello, exactly. Lots of big news this week. This was a busy week, but before we dive into it, got to ask you to like and subscribe if you could. It helps us out. It's a great way for us to build the channel. If you like what you see here, we do appreciate it. And please give us a like and a subscription.
Tell your friends, tell your family, talk about us at Thanksgiving dinner in the next couple of weeks. I mean, the options are endless. So
you could print out flyers and hang them up in your neighborhood if you're feeling generous. Skywriting, you could do that for us. We wouldn't turn that down either. So
cornfield artwork.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. But our main story this week, all about the Acura Integra. And Sean, I'm just going to throw this right in your lap. As a Honda fanatic, can you tell us why the Integra is such a big deal and what its reintroduction means?
Yes, the resident Honda fanatic that I am. No, I do like my Hondas. But obviously we approach everything with an unbiased opinion. But overall, this is huge for Acura and Honda. It's a legendary nameplate, number one, but the scope of this is the Acura NSX is going away. It signs off with its own Type S model. And after that, Acura needs a halo vehicle. So this was the proper opportunity to bring the Integra back. And Acura was founded to be a performance luxury division. And if you're going to do that, you need a performance luxury car to lead your lineup. And that's what the Integra is going to do. At the end of the day, it replaces the ILX, which was a car.
That certainly was.
That's for sure. But the Integra, it brings back an iconic nameplate, one with a lot of cachet. And basically, I'm not saying I'm the only one who had this take, but I know a couple shows ago, I called it and said that the new Integra should be the Civic Si hatchback that Honda isn't giving us. And well, what do you know? This car, and we should say this is a prototype. This is not a final production vehicle. But what do you know? It has the Civic Si's powertrain underneath. So everyone's like, oh no, you killed the Civic Si coupe. Well, give us a Civic Si hatchback. There's precedent for that. And Honda was just like, no, we're cool. But instead, behind the scenes, Acura is like, little do you know, we are building a Civic Si hatchback because this has 4 doors. The 5th door is a liftback back there, even though this has a pretty sedan-like profile, Craig.
Yes, it does. It looks, and that's a question I wanted to ask you, sort of a philosophical question. What is a hatchback? Because this has a very sedan-like profile, as does the Civic hatch. Let's not kid ourselves. But they've added that sort of liftback to it. At what point is it a hatchback or a liftback? Like, are they the same? Are they different?
I feel like people kind of use those terms interchangeably now. I feel like the liftback term people use for a sedan with that hatch at the rear. You know, I think of the Buick Regal that has since departed us and the Kia Stinger as a liftback. But I mean, Acura's calling this a hatchback, so we'll call it a hatchback because, you know, also like you said, the latest Civic hatchback, you know, doesn't have that, you know, squared off rear-endish look to it either. It's just kind of more like, look, the roof comes up.
Yeah. To me, a hatchback is like a GTI. It's
Yes.
square and boxy and very functional.
Hmm.
And this looks like a sedan that they just put a fancy, larger opening at the back of.
But also, I mean, they said that the Integra was going back to its roots, and its roots are a 5-door hatchback.
Yeah.
So 4 doors and then the hatch. And to be fair, not that there's a lot of nostalgia going on here overall in the design.
Mhm.
Uh, it follows that formula very closely, where you look at an original Integra, and you don't really see that it's a hatchback. It looks like a sedan, or they also sold it as a 2-door with kind of a sloping roof line. So in that respect, I think they did very well with the design. But Craig, what are you thinking about the design
Mm.
overall?
First of all, love the pearl yellow paint job. You're going to see this car from like 50 miles away if it's painted in this color. Super bright, very effervescent. I love when automakers offer some exuberant colors instead of like 3 shades of silver, 2 gray, 5 blacks, whatever, like you get on an S class or something. So very
Yes.
cool paint choice, which is also a retro, isn't it? This is a throwback color.
Yeah, I kind of think this was an intentional color to paint this prototype. I believe the color was Phoenix yellow, is what we
Mm.
saw on the only Type R you could buy once upon a time in America. That was the Integra Type R.
Gotcha. But yeah, so I love the paint color. As for the rest of the design, it's clean, it's tidy. You get the classic Acura grille and headlights up front and those sort of pinched Acura taillights at the back. But obviously, a lot of this car's Civic roots are kind of visible. The potted side view mirrors look very similar. Of course, the roof line as well, which isn't a bad thing. The Civic is an excellent small car. It's a wonderful foundation for Acura to build on. But if you're going to be a luxury brand and you're going to do performance, you have to be careful, I think, because the expectations of a luxury car are different than that of a performance car, right?
Hmm.
Luxury, you expect more features, more comfort, obviously, but also I think subtler design, which is what the new Integra has. It's very clean. It's very tasteful. It's a design I think is going to look good in 15 years. Something we comment on quite frequently on this show. But that's sort of antithetical to what you want in a performance car. And performance cars like the Civic Type R tend to be very over the top, aggressive, a lot of wings and gills and vents and everything. And if you're going to be luxury performance, you have to be careful. You got to have a little bit of sport, but not too much.
Yeah, I think the design overall does a really good job at balancing that. When
Yeah.
I first saw it at the reveal last night, I was like, okay, it's not bad. I wasn't like head over heels, like, oh wow, like it's like starstruck or anything. But through the morning, as I've kind of digested it a little bit more, I like it. I really do. It's clean. It's simple. It has that luxurious elegance about it, but it also, especially from the rear, in my opinion, which is its best angle,
Hmm.
again, in my opinion, it has an aggressive sporting look to it. Up front, it's a little anonymous, and I've seen some feedback from people saying like they were hoping for a little bit more aggression. Um, but yeah, because it just kind of wears the Acura corporate face up front, and then
Yeah.
they moved on,
Yep.
which I mean, that's fine. I don't think the current face of Acura is ugly. In fact, I think Acura cars are the best they've looked in at least 10 years at this point. But overall, I totally agree that, um, and we should say, like Honda prototypes, Acura prototypes are incredibly close to what will eventually
Yes.
be produced and shipped to dealerships for people to buy. So what you're staring at here is like 99.5% production.
Hmm.
We're just missing the interior. We haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, which they're not showing and probably won't until much closer to its arrival date. Um, Yeah, so I love that they molded the Integra brand or word mark into the bumpers. I think that looks super cool. And
It's
also the
throwback.
graphics on the side. They're a little bit tacky, but I gotta say, I do love them where it says Integra spelled out in big letters, which is kind of cool.
I love it. It looks like if the case was, all right, guys, we're bringing back the Integra. You guys are basically building a Honda Civic Si hatchback, but for the grown up Acura brand. It looks
Yes.
like they had like, if they were like, you can have 2 cups worth of fun. Like they took the full 2 cups and dumped it in the bowl,
Yeah.
for as expressive as they could get. I really hope, like you said, that we see like some great colors for this car, something brighter and not as subdued for like the rest of the Acura lineup. Again, I don't think people going to an Acura dealership hoping to take home an Integra are looking for rental car silver all the time.
No.
But overall, I'm impressed with it. I walk away impressed and hopeful that that this is going to be even better than the 11th generation Civic, which I think we should say, though we don't see the interior on this Integra prototype, the 11th generation Civic is a fantastic place to start because, as you know, Craig, that interior is like exquisite for the price point.
Yes, it's phenomenal. They did an
And
amazing job.
yeah, and we should say, if you guys don't know already, is that Acura is trying to start this car around $30,000. So it's not going to be like you can't touch an Integra unless you spend 40 grand.
Yeah.
This is going to be for a luxury performance car, sports car kind of thing. That's affordable at the end of the day.
Yeah. So just to back up a second, your prediction was correct, Sean, about this being basically the Civic Si hatchback.
Yeah, what do I
under
win?
the hood, you're going to get the say again.
Yeah, what do I win?
Yeah, you win a round of applause. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But this car is going to have a 1.5 liter turbo under the hood, just like the Civic Si. They say it's going to have more than 200 horsepower, which is a good thing because that's what you do get in the Civic Si. And of course, a 6-speed manual is confirmed, and you had better get the manual. Do you hear me? If you don't, they're offering an automatic. I am coming for you. I have ways of finding you. I have ways of making you pay if you do not get the 6-speed, because this car deserves it.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, Craig Cole, he's a deviant one. He will move your newspaper so far away from the mailbox that you won't ever find it, and you'll be annoyed.
You will never know who knocked your trash can over.
Yeah.
Oh, damn, I gave it away. And that's all I'm saying.
Anyway.
I have one other prediction, though. I have a prediction. I predict Sean will be buying one of these once they're available.
We'll see. I don't know. I'd have to drive it. Just because I like my Hondas, it doesn't mean that it's a sold sign for me in my eyes. But so far, I like what I see, because here's the thing too. If you want maybe an iconic car these days to succeed, if you're going to bring it back, we're beyond the days of sedans. I don't know if sedans will ever come back, because the auto industry is changing so quickly. Like every 6 months, it feels like we're taking 7 steps into the future.
Yeah.
If you're going to do it, bringing it back with utility with that hatchback is the right way to do it, because that way people can use this as their everything car. They can take it and do things that you just couldn't do with a sedan, in terms of cargo. So that's my last point on Integra.
Yeah. So 2023 Acura Integra is scheduled to go into production next year. They're going to build it in Marysville, Ohio. And just a reminder, it's going to start at probably right around 30 grand, which should make it a pretty damn good deal. But moving along, we've got some more news from another Japanese automaker. The Subaru Solterra was revealed in Japan. This is the automaker's first all-electric vehicle. It's a crossover, so yay, I guess.
It's not, Craig, a more ugly version of the Mustang Mach-E.
No,
we promise.
Yes, although that is what someone had commented in our corporate Slack channel here for Roadshow, and I was laughing very hard because as soon as I read that, I was like, yep, 100% see it. Looks like a Mach-E that got kind of chiseled a little bit. Because there are only so many ways you can do a crossover form, right?
Well, I think there may have been other ways. There certainly could have been other ways to do the Subaru Solterra, is what I'll say. But yeah, I don't understand, Craig, and this is a bit of an off ramp, but what is with the trapezoidal grills that are just across every car now, EV or not? This shape is just finding its way everywhere, and yeah, it's really weird to see it here because you don't even need a grill on an EV. So it's like,
No.
why that particular shape?
I think it's because, well, for conventionally powered vehicles, there's the trend of gigantic grills, which is, Audi and Lexus are leading the charge on that front. And I think other automakers have started to sort of adopt that styling cue. But on the EV side, I think it's because obviously they don't have a combustion engine generating a lot of waste heat. They don't need a whole lot of cooling capacity in an EV. But the expectation is that cars have grills. So they have to put something there because you can't just have a flat blank space. I mean, Tesla kind of does that, right? But still, they do put some surfacing there. So there's at least a hint of a vestigial grill or something. But I think people visually expect cars to have grills. They have to have a face on them. And just because there's an alternative powertrain in there doesn't mean you can get away from that. That's my take.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. I'm just like trapezoids everywhere. You can't get away from them.
It's
Anyway,
a new
tell us
fad.
more. Tell us more about the Solterra, which, by the way, literally translates to sun earth.
So they couldn't decide which celestial body to name it after, so they chose two. Yeah, it's basically, it was developed in conjunction with Toyota. The two automakers worked on this common architecture, and in this application, it's called the Subaru Global Platform. So I would expect that to be spread out to other products as well, both Subaru and Toyota's lineups. But this looks a little more traditional than the Toyota BZ4X, which is not a copier or the toner that goes into a printer. This is their upcoming all-electric crossover. A little bit more traditional here for the Subaru, but why does it have the giant black plastic cladding on the side? Like, why do we need that? Are you out of ideas?
Subaru. It's a Subaru. It's got to be off-roadish ready or something.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised when I saw this. And by the way, dear viewers, this is the Japanese spec debut. I don't know if we said that. We're going to get US specs next week at the LA Auto Show, which Subaru has confirmed. So anything we're talking about here isn't confirmed totally for the US, but it will definitely still look like this. Like, this is the design of the car.
We're not expecting any major changes on that front.
Yeah, but I was actually surprised. I thought I was going to like how the Solterra looked more than the BZ4X, but I actually prefer the BZ4X. I don't think either of them are particularly great looking vehicles. But if I was like, I got to choose between the Subaru and the Toyota, I'd pick the Toyota. And that's weird. I'm noticing a pattern because I would also pick the GR86 over the BRZ personally. So
maybe you're a secret Toyota fan and not just
I don't know.
Honda man.
No.
But yes, joint architecture between Toyota and Subaru for this vehicle. The Subaru should have a traditional steering wheel instead of a weird yoke. I mean, that's another trend we're seeing, everybody going with yokes, it seems, which just seems like a really bad idea. There's literally no need to reinvent the steering wheel. Like, we figured that out quite a while ago, and it's round and it's okay.
Yeah.
Subaru Solterra here should have 330 miles of range on the Japanese test cycle, probably a bit less than that on the EPA cycle. 285 with all-wheel drive. So a little bit less, of course, with all-wheel drive. And of course, you get the DC fast charging capability. It'll do 150 kilowatts, which will get you 80% charge in about 30 minutes. And we're expecting this vehicle to go on sale globally sometime in the middle of next year. But we should have a lot more details next week, which is a lot sooner than next year, because we're going to see the US version at the LA Auto Show. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah. I don't know. Who is this more important for, Craig? Is this a more important vehicle for Subaru or Toyota?
That's a good question. I would maybe say Toyota, because they will probably sell more than Subaru. But also Toyota's kind of behind on the EV front. Like, they don't have many right now. The pioneer of hybrid technology dropped the ball, apparently. Yeah. So we'll see. I think it'd be a bigger deal for Toyota. They're going to sell a lot more Toyota version. Yeah, definitely.
Totally. I don't have the final answer on this, but I believe, from what I understand, it has a lot to do with the country of Japan really bet on hydrogen fuel cells as the future of motoring around in a vehicle.
Yeah.
So, like, obviously Toyota, and because it's the same thing with Honda. I mean, Honda just has the E, that, and they only sell that. They don't even sell that globally. I mean, so it may just be a case of they made the wrong bet.
Could be.
But yeah, so it's a solid step because, if fuel cells do ever become a thing and it feels like it's always just 10 years away from that big fuel cell breakthrough where it's going to be mainstream and hydrogen fuel will be on every corner.
Yeah.
It's been like that for the past 30 years. It feels
like. Right. Well, fuel cells are great on larger scale applications, big trucks and stuff. They don't necessarily scale down very well. That's, for passenger cars, battery electric is probably a better option, but yeah, that's a good point that the Japanese might have made the wrong bet.
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah.
So moving along, thank you so much for watching the show this week. Of course, if you got time, we got other great videos on the Roadshow News channel. We've got one about a Ford Mondeo that's going to be offered in China. Apparently, Chinese buyers still like sedans. Ford will not be offering this new Mondeo in the U.S., but the Chinese version looks pretty cool, so make sure to check that out. We've also got another little feature about the Ford Bronco Raptor, which broke cover not long ago, so make sure you give that feature a watch as well. Stay up to date on all your automotive news on the Roadshow News channel. But Kia also getting on the EV bandwagon. Everybody's got to do it these days, eh? We got EV9 concept that they're set to debut next week in LA. What's the scoop with this thing, Sean?
Well, we don't know a whole lot about it just yet. Presumably, it's going to be larger than the EV6 that we've seen that's supposed to launch in early next year. And I only base that on the fact because if you're using a numerical scale, 9 is bigger than 6. But It's weird because the teaser images kind of have it looking like it's small. Like it reminds me of a Kia Soul sort of chiseled together or chiseled out more or something like that. But the teasers you're looking at here are the only photos that Kia gave us. They didn't give us any final information about what this concept car is going to house, except that it's going to be a pioneering package, was the phrase that Kia used for this vehicle.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, being a pioneer of, I don't know, maybe it's got some crazy battery tech in there or something like that. We'll just have to wait and see. But right now, it's to us, it's just another electric vehicle concept. In terms of the design, it's definitely going to follow the whatever's in the water over there at Hyundai Kia ethos, because it's definitely super futuristic and doesn't look like much of anything else. Though, in fact, I think it looks closer to things we've seen from Hyundai than Kia a little bit, except for some of the front fascia elements and the taillights. They remind me a little bit of the EV6. But just one thing I noticed, and not that it has any relation to anything, is I actually get Cadillac XT4 vibes from the front, especially that shot right there. That looks like XT4 headlights or the daytime running signature.
The way they're kind of pulled back a little bit, right?
Yeah.
No, definitely. But this is another car based on the interior photo. Is it going to have a steering yoke? I hope not. I guess it was a squared off steering wheel, so it's not as bad. This photo makes it look like a yoke, but here you can see it's more rectangular. So I was a little bit worried when I saw the other photo, like another yoke. Come on, we don't need that.
Here's the thing, why over the decades of concept cars are designers enthralled with putting differently shaped wheels in the concept car? Never once has that kind of shape made it to production.
Yeah.
Never.
The closest you get is slightly like a rounded square. Slightly.
Or a flat bottom steering wheel, and that has its roots in motorsport. That has a purpose for a flat bottom steering wheel. So I just don't understand, because I'm sorry, damn well that whatever production vehicle this is previewing is not going to have a squircle shaped steering wheel. It's going to be a steering wheel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And there's good reason for that, because it works and everybody understands it. It's not hard.
I don't know. I just don't know. It's so interesting. But one thing, I know you mentioned it with the BZ4X and the Solterra. We don't know if Toyota is going to put the steering yoke in the US spec. They haven't given any final answer on that. I imagine they have to have some discussions with US regulators to see if it fits everything, because what Toyota said was they have a direct steer-by-wire system, so you can do an easier lock to lock with the yoke. So we don't even know if we're going to get that. But so far, Tesla's the only one who will be producing a car that you can get with a wheel yoke if you would like that.
If you would like that. I don't. Thank you very much.
Well, now we know where Craig stands, at least.
Yeah, I'm pretty plain. Anyway, another important EV story. Big tax credit news. This is part of the Biden administration's Build Back Better agenda. House Democrats changed some of the language in proposed legislation that could include a refundable tax credit. Now, what this means is that EV buyers could actually get money back on their taxes if the bill passes and doesn't get changed and everything. Because politics is the art of compromise. There's a whole lot of work. Got to appease a whole bunch of people before anything gets done, as we know. So this could very well go away. But the way it's written, I guess, non-refundable credits is what you get right now. So if you owe the government $10,000, you go buy a new EV that's eligible for the $7,500 tax credit. That reduces how much you have to pay in taxes down to $2,500. So you're not actually getting money from the government. It's just reducing your tax burden. And if you only owe like $1,000 to the government, that $7,500 credit would wipe that out. So you would basically owe the government zero, but you don't get any extra money. Right. Which is still a good thing, but like I feel like I'm getting shortchanged kind of if I had that happen.
Yeah, I mean, the Biden administration has been super keen on trying to incentivize EV purchases. Their goal with actions they plan on taking is to have at least 50% of new cars sold in the U.S. by 2030 be electric. So that's huge. I mean, right now, the percentage of EVs sold in across all new cars sold is something like 2.3%, 2.7%, and maybe approaching 3%. So now imagine at least half of all new cars sold being electric. Yeah. I mean, I think everyone in this industry knows that things are going to start accelerating rapidly this decade. So it could very well be that it's like, oh, wow, that was easier than we thought it would be. But it will be interesting. And the big thing with that is going to get people into these cars. And a really great way of getting people into something, or at least checking it out, is being like, hey, what if we give you thousands of dollars to buy this car? Yeah. Because it's cleaner for the environment in terms of tailpipe emissions, at least, and it can help us achieve some goals we want to do. So that is the big thing. And the refundable version of this credit that the U.S. House wrote would do that. And in fact, it would go further than $7,500, which is kind of the max baseline, so to speak, for any EV you buy with a certain battery pack in terms of the energy storage. It would go up to $12,500 that you could get on a specific EV if it met criteria.
Yes.
Right now, that criteria is an extra $4,500 if the EV you're purchasing was made in the United States and built in a factory with a union labor workforce.
Yes.
And then there's another $500 if that EV uses a battery that was made in the U.S. for a total of $12,500.
Yes. And just to back up for a second, though, to explain the refundable credit, I don't know if we touched on that exactly.
Yes.
But if you got a vehicle that was eligible for that $7,500 credit and you still owed $1,000 in taxes, it would wipe out your tax liability and you would get $6,500 back. So this is like a much bigger incentive for people to get an EV. Yeah.
Yeah. Because this is literally a way of putting money in your pocket for buying an EV. It's the closest thing before anyone starts getting to, point of sale rebates, where that money just comes off the sale price. And you don't have to wait till you file your taxes to, get the money back or anything like that. But I mean, the refundable credit would be an instrumental change, because if automakers get to go out there with this sort of advertising and marketing firepower, come check out a Mustang Mach-E, come check out the Bolt EUV, Elon Musk tweets, come buy a Tesla Model Y because you can potentially get up to $12,500 back in your pocket. I mean, that is a huge shift that could really just change the minds of people to at least, put butts in seats. is something I think what dealerships say. There's a phrase or something like that,
Yeah.
where you just want people in the car to try it, and they might be like, oh, you know what, this isn't bad. And then if automakers bundle in, charging deals, or they subsidize, a charging station at home or something like that, then you can really start to sell some EVs in the US, I think. It's
absolutely
a huge thing.
And this proposed tax credit would also be available to companies like Tesla and General Motors that have already gone through their available tax credits from previous legislation. So it would reopen the door for them. So the thing I think that might be controversial here is that you get a greater discount or more money back if you buy a union-built, U.S. assembled vehicle with a U.S.-made battery, right? Because that's sort of a big subsidy for the big three, the Detroit automakers that build, I think, more vehicles here than the foreign competitors that do assemble vehicles in the United States, of course. But I think the U.S. automakers would be certainly favored in this scheme, which some may not like.
It's already a flashpoint. I know Toyota is lobbying pretty hard because Toyota has a huge manufacturing footprint here in the U.S. And they're like, hey, we employ, thousands and thousands of U.S. workers. Why aren't we eligible?
Union.
Right. But they're arguing, saying like, hey, we contribute to the economy here. Like, we want to be part of the bonus too. That potential $4,500. And again, as Craig mentioned in this segment, it's not final. This is part of that Build Back Better bill that has been stalled amid Democrats for months now. So who knows, number one, if it will pass, and number two, what it will look like when it does pass. You can have a lot of voices still being like, okay, we're going to change this and we're going to turn it back into a non-refundable credit, or something like that. So this could change in a big way, but it seems like, if anything, EV tax credits are in for some sort of big overhaul with whatever does get done, if anything gets done.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing this would ever make it through the halls of government at this scale. Stranger things have happened, and we'll have to wait and see. But in any event, subsidies should be a big boon for EVs. We got a lot of EVs coming out. The market share is probably only about 3% right now, as you touched on, Sean. So this will undoubtedly help sell more electric vehicles in the U.S. But yeah, that should just about do it for our main stories this week. Sean, you had a few others you wanted to touch on before we sign off.
Yeah, totally. And the first one I'm going to plug is by you, Craig, because seriously, Craig got to spend quite a bit of time with the Ford Maverick, and he has a full in-depth review that just went live today, Friday. So you can check that out, because I think Craig was a bit head over heels for it. I don't know if you want to tease your takeaway from that.
I was blown away how such a basic and affordable vehicle, how good it could be. That's all I'm going to say. Go read the full review.
Yeah, you may see the Ford light behind Craig, and just like I like Hondas, we still approach everything objectively, so like if the Maverick was a piece of crap, like, we'd be like, no, dude, don't want to do this, or something like that. What else good stuff we have this week? Something else included that was included this week was Chevrolet will sell any private race team an upcoming Corvette Z06 GT3 race car. So, Craig, for that racing team you're starting, you can buy a Chevy Corvette Z06 GT3 race car and campaign that in a lot of GT3 spec championships. So,
is that good?
Yeah.
I don't know what any of that means.
Jot those notes down, because I know you're starting a racing team. And one of the other huge things that happened this week was Rivian's initial public offering was ginormous. And you can read all about that on theroadshow.com and so much more that we did not have time to talk about in this show.
Yep. Well, thanks for that, Sean. And on that note, I think we are just about done with Roadshow News Recap for this week. Sean, thank you again for your time and your expertise, as always.
You know it. If it's Friday, I'm sitting here with you, Craig.
I'm sorry you've had that as your life sentence.
Yeah.
But,
I'm over it, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Thank you to Evan Miller, the man behind the scenes that makes all of this possible, doing the switching, doing the videos and all that jazz. I don't know how it works, but I know it gets done. Thank you, Evan. And of course, thank you all for watching Roadshow News Recap, where we dissect and discuss the most important automotive stories of the past week. Y'all have a great weekend, and we will see you next Friday.